don't often make 2 videos in one day, but this one sparked my interest. I watched like 20 seconds of it and I already started hating it, and I want to talk about it. I haven't seen the full video. I want to react to it while I watch it. This is gonna be a live reaction. I just realized how blatantly misinformed and just like, I'm probably gonna leave a comment. I don't even know, because given the vibes of this person, don't think that would be the right choice. Anyway, I'd still make a video about this, my reaction of sorts. Okay, let me see. Anyway, I want to see exactly the full video, and I will react to it and make commentary to it. I don't even know why I'm doing this. I think I just need someone to yap to. Anyway.
Back in the early 2000s, the world was a very different place.
Yeah.
Things were a lot less censored and more chaotic in many.
That is already wrong. Let's not forget about the post 9/11 censorship and how a lot of music was pulled off from airwaves, and a lot of content, especially involving explosions or fire or death, was taken away or taken off the air for years, or at least for a couple years. And a lot of shows had to make last-minute edits. Namely, for example, Family Guy had a shot of the World Trade Center in one of the episodes. I don't remember the name. I think Peter Swallows and Brian Swallows. Brian Swallows and Peter Swallows. I don't remember exactly. It's the one where Brian takes care of this opera singer that shot herself in, and there's one very brief scene in a musical number, and the Twin Towers is being shown normally. For like a year or so, they had to remove it from that shot, specifically because of 9/11. So, less censored? Not really. It's always been censored. Sure, you can make some points that there is definitely some censorship now, but realistically, it's kind of as bad as it's always been.
Ways, bringing all the good and bad that comes with that. I mean, Rush Hour has a warning before it airs on television now.
Let's see.
I never imagined something like that back in the day.
It's so funny. Another point that is bullshit. Why? Tom and Jerry had warnings on the DVD releases, and that was the early 2000s. Back in the 90s, they stopped airing a lot of classic Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry shorts because they had racist elements. I grew up with them because I'm not American, but in the US, they did remove them many years ago. They even re-edited them to have Mammy Two Shoes, I think that was her name, swapped with the white woman. And it's really interesting how cultural, like, how interesting a cultural divide can be, because as a kid, when I saw Mammy Two Shoes, I straight up did not see her as like someone who would take care of the house or whatever, like in the racist way where she is portrayed in the US, and that is her stereotype. Because racism is very different in Europe, I just kind of saw her as like the owner of Tom and Jerry, the same way, like, you know, the other characters would have them over time. And those were my favorite episodes because I actually liked her as a character. She was like, I mean, besides, like, I'm also thinking about it this way. We had those episodes dubbed, and the dubbing removes a lot of the cultural stereotypes and racial stereotypes that were invoked at the time. So I guess I was watching a less racist version of those episodes where I couldn't really understand where the discrimination was. Plus, I was a kid, so I was more ignorant. I think now, if I was to rewatch those same episodes the same way, I wouldn't be able to unsee those elements. But I feel like so far, we're only 16 seconds in, and I already feel like this person is seeing the 2000s as a rose tinted glasses perspective. Like, you would have survived the 2000s internet, and I'm sure he's gonna say, because people were anti it's like, no, not only did I survive 2000s internet, I lived in 2000s internet. Like, I feel like this person is probably born like, not to be like ageist or anything, but I feel like this person is born like 2005 and has like this rose tinted view of the internet. Even I probably have a rose tinted view of the internet because I was born in 98, so I was 12 when the 2000s ended, you know? But let's continue.
We were all a lot more curious and green behind the ears when it came to technology. And don't forget, we were still a mostly physically connected world. Third spaces were plenty, and much more than now. People were more open to being approached and interacted.
Yeah, I believe that a lot of people were more open to being approached, and I feel like social anxiety has gotten so much worse with time. Like, I am someone who has social anxiety. I am a socially anxious person, but compared to a lot of people I hang out with, or a lot of people I'm even friends with, a lot of those people would not say that I have social anxiety. Why? Because I'm, I guess, less socially anxious than them. This is not a competition, obviously. I'm not putting those people down. We all have our reasons and stuff, and I do think that my old job really did help me get over the worst of my anxiety. I just feel like the world did get a lot more anxious in general as a whole, and not even like as a result of anxiety or, oh, everyone's anxious. I just think that like society has become way more isolated, and maybe in the 2000s, if someone like some random approached you and just want to be your friend, it wouldn't be as bad as it is now. Like, now, anxiety mode would turn on at max volume, even if it was someone you knew. Anyway, enough with the yapping. Let's see.
Interacting with strangers. All this was put to the test when the internet went public and mainstream from the late 90s through 2000s.
If you're one of them, you can now glimpse the future with nothing more than a modem, a phone line, and a few dollars a month.
Every business, no matter how large, no matter how small, will be on the internet in the year 2000. It's the primary way that people will look up information. It will replace the yellow pages as we know it today.
You've probably heard me and others describe the early internet as the Wild West, and that's no exaggeration, though it is a very open.
I think it is not an exaggeration, but I feel it's also a very narrow perspective. Like, I would say the Wild West, I feel a lot of people are trying to portray it as being more wild than it was. Like, yes, it was not as corporate, but the internet, I feel like it just, if anything, the Wild West aspect has still remained. It's just that now it's done in a worse, more offensive way, and not in a South Park, we want to be offensive because we want to convey a message and just kind of like poke fun at the people in power. More of a, we want to be offensive and put down minorities type of way. Anyway, let's continue.
We use description for everything on YouTube now. See, back then there was no algorithm, no over-the-shoulder moderation.
No over-the-shoulder moderation. Have you heard about why 4chan was created? 4chan was literally created because the Something Awful forums banned anime. You know how stupid that is? Like, if you were to do that these days, just say, oh yeah, we're just going to ban people from an entire website because they have anime profile pictures or they like anime. It will cause civil war. even then it was controversial. Like, don't get me wrong, it was super controversial, and there's a reason why, you know, something awful is not that active, and 4chan is the behemoth that it is now. But the point is, come on.
No content trigger warnings.
It's so funny. No content trigger warnings. Every fucking TV show that wasn't for kids had a warning. This content may not be suitable for children. What do you think that is? It's a content warning. It's a trigger warning. Or even the fucking warning for content advisory. The video game rating system. Like, those are our trigger warnings. You didn't mind them. Most people don't mind them. It's so funny. It's only this person is very clearly just trying to complain.
In fact, most would be looking for you to get triggered.
I think he's referring to Two Girls, One Cup and how people would show each other shock content, I think. But yeah, I think that's like about repulsion. The thing is, what he's talking about isn't what was actually happening. It was about repulsion. Meanwhile, what people these days refer to as like triggered and all that stuff refers to straight up making them upset. And sure, that was a thing before, like, clearly, but it's done in it's different. It's not the same thing. It's not executed the same way. But anyway, let's see.
No guide. Parents didn't know how it worked, so they couldn't keep things in check.
Yeah, I guess.
For the most part, there were no rules.
There were rules. There were no rules. Yeah, there were rules. Like, if you were to do something truly heinous, you would get banned. You, like, sure, I know that he's showing Newgrounds because, yeah, Newgrounds was an edgy place. However, there were games that got removed from Newgrounds. Sure, there was controversy whenever it would happen, but the point is, there were some cases. What the fuck is going on outside? There are definitely like situations where it's like they had to remove something. Like, saying that there were no rules is incorrect. You couldn't just like go and scream everything you thought of, every racist, bigoted thing. Even then, that would get punished or be looked down on if you were just saying it for the sake of being hateful. Like, there were no rules. Like, it feels like this person is literally just like, this whole video so far, 122 minutes in, by the way, is just you wouldn't survive a Call of Duty lobby because everyone was so edgy and everyone was shouting every slur imaginable, and that's how literally every single Call of Duty lobby was ever. There was literally nothing else. You people would join Call of Duty lobbies just to say slurs and insult each other and flame each other, when that wasn't the frequent thing. Sure, that was a problem in public lobbies, but a large majority of even public lobbies were more chill. Either had barely anyone in them, or that's how, like, why is it that a huge common memory amongst people that were online playing video games in the 2000s and early 2010s was meeting friends that they would have for years and years to come? Because that was also a really good hub to make friends. A hub that we don't really have as much these days. Like, sure, there's MMOs, but people are not as open to interacting with randoms as that was back then, you know? Anyway.
This early digital world was a chaotic jungle full of viruses, bootlegs, which I've done a video on as well, strangers, nightmares, discovery, and honestly fun. But none of us were truly ready for it. I mean, look at how we handle the internet now and how it constantly interferes with our realities. Yet somehow, many of us thrived in this new ecosystem back then, but not without our own fair share of battle scars. Seriously, I know the previous generation had prawn tapes and magazines, but the content the internet would expose young kids to on a regular basis was no joke.
Yeah, I would say like early internet was the era of screamers, or as people younger than me would only know them as jump scares. Basically just videos that are supposed to be very innocuous. Na, 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 na. Boom, there's someone screaming. Or even the scary maze. Everyone knows the scary maze. Probably even kids these days know about it. How, yeah, you just like go in the maze and then you get screamed and you had online reactions. There's that one video that was actually faked where someone broke their fucking monitor and pissed their pants. And people's reactions to Two Girls One Cup. Like, yes, I will say that there were a lot of things and a lot of edgy things on the internet back then. However, I feel like we traded one for the other. Now you don't get that, but now you're likely to. If someone makes a bad take online, they'll get sent like the goriest gore in the world. So like, sometimes you can even just see it unprompted. I remember I saw shit like that.
It was edgy and would raise an even edgier generation.
Again, it's so funny that you see videos like this basically being like, oh, this raised an edgy generation, and then we see people on the same breath whine about like millennials and maybe even early Gen Z. I've seen them more generalized as millennials, being like, oh, they're like the sensitive ones, they're the woke ones, they're the ones that actually care, we're the edgy ones, and the edgy ones being specifically like later Gen Z. Anyway, whatever.
But it wasn't just the edge. We were naive and reckless and darn near completely unsupervised.
I guess, yeah.
It honestly feels like a social experiment in hindsight, especially as a youngin.
Yeah.
If you were a kid on the net back then, you felt it. In your hard drive, your conscience, your nightmares,
yeah,
your pants,
okay.
And in your...
I didn't care about porn until like I was a teenager. But like, yeah, I remember I actually had a nightmare once as a kid. There was this flash animation of Ash Ketchum getting mauled by a grizzly bear, and it was quite brutal. And I remember I was in single-digit age, and I couldn't sleep because in my mind I was replaying that flash animation. I was like, Jesus Christ. Why would push someone to do that? And I understand it was just like a way to take out your anger if you hate a character, which is you still see, it's just not in flash animation form, but you can kind of see. Some people do that in like an affectionate way now. They torture their favorite characters or whatever.
Search history.
AOL membership gives you more, and it's so easy to get started.
You just plug it in.
Easy to use email, buddy list, keywords. At America Online, your security and privacy are always protected.
Let me take you back in time, 2 decades ago to be exact. A time when Ask Jeeves was the search engine of choice, before Google came along.
That was more than 2 decades ago. That was like the late 90s. And also, Google kind of took over very fast because it was a better search engine than Ask Jeeves. The only people who actually used Ask Jeeves past like the mid to late 90s were grandmas. Everyone moved to Google quite fast. Within like 3 to 5 years, everyone was on Google.
To free our searches from being limited to like 1/5 of what was actually out there. A time when AOL CDs were in everyone's drawers due to them being carpet bombed into everyone's.
So this is late 90s, not 20 years ago. This is more like 25 years ago.
Back when DSL was the way we connected to the net, and it felt like the way.
So 25 years ago, whatever.
When even 3 seconds of loading feels like hell now. Okay, maybe that's a bit too far back, but this is
that's a bit too far back.
And throughout this decade, the internet grows into a more immediately accessible and adventurous luxury. It's new, feels lawless, and pretty raw. Any kid who was raised by Newgrounds and early YouTube will tell you that.
Okay, but like, we're not. YouTube is already mid 2000s. We're talking about the late 90s. Like, yes, Newgrounds does count because it's been here for give or take 30 years, but there's definitely a way until YouTube. There's a lot of, videos where it's not as centralized until then. But whatever.
There are a few core traits that really sum up what this era of the internet felt like. The first, as you probably heard,
I missed this game.
Less censorship. That's already a dual-sided coin, but what makes it so negative is that absolutely nothing was age-gated.
Yeah,
Shot,
that is true.
porn, and gore sites were all the rage in this era and spread among kids like a funny simile I can't think of. Right
yeah,
now.
that.
All of it required no age verification beyond possibly clicking a box saying, "Yes, I'm 18."
Yeah, that's also a huge thing. Like, I mean, it's a kind of a meme that every one of us said, "Oh yeah, I am 18" and all that. Nowadays, we're kind of seeing the death of this. Because now there's actual like age verification through ID and all that, which is quite terrifying in a way, because I don't want to give my ID to any government official or any government. I know I am 26, almost 27. I don't think I need any website to know. And I understand that this is to protect the kids or think of the kids or whatever, but I don't think it's helping anyone. I think it straight up is just a ploy to enact surveillance. Just how Terrorism Act was in the US like 20 years ago. Was it terrorism? Something about like I don't remember. I don't know the names of.
Listen, a kid will lie about kicking a ball into your car by mistake or buying some V-Bucks. So the growing prawn addicts of the time were ready to lie and see some cheeks for the first time.
Yeah, I mean,
and I won't lie, I was one of them. And this stuff was so easily accessible back in the day. It's funny. You'd find it even if you weren't looking.
Yeah,
the second core trait is the tech naivety that we all had.
Yeah.
The internet was completely...
Like, I feel like if we had the old internet these days, not only we would know better, but I feel like kids these days would... Some kids these days would know better. Not all of them, but I do feel like now everyone knows what the internet is about, so we're less likely to fall into any pitfalls like these.
New ground. And no, that's not an intended pun. But no one knew exactly what was in store.
Yeah.
A part of the early charm and fun of the 2000s net is that it felt like there was so much to discover with all the good and bad that comes from that.
That's part of the charm.
This also made us more susceptible to viruses, hackers, and the various pop-ups that we never saw before.
Again, viruses, hackers, and pop-ups. I feel like the only improvement in this regard that we've seen is that at the very least, as far as we're aware, there is way better security these days online. Modern browsers have their own firewall. We have our own firewall at home. Basic security, and an ad blocker also takes you a long way. To the point where I seriously feel like if you were to connect to the internet on an old computer running Windows XP, as long as you had a firewall and used Supremium, whatever, which is a modern, like it's a fork of modern Chromium to work on XP. I seriously feel like you would likely be more safe than, and of course updated and with all the security measures in mind. you've probably been more safe than you were back then. The problem is that there's fewer sites. There's less of a wonder and adventuring than the web of old. So that's kind of a hard thing to quantify, I guess.
As the I Love You mess gets cleaned up, there's more cyber chaos spreading in the form of these titles. This is a great new game, very funny, even Mother's Day gifts. They're no gifts. They're computer bugs that can ruin certain programs in your files.
RIP to all those destroyed computers out there thanks to some kid doing something that had no business doing. Speaking of that, the final core trait is the blurry identities. The tech naivety combined with a new way of meeting people made for an interesting and dangerous mix. Internet chat rooms were the new hotness.
Yeah.
Suddenly you were meeting people who you'd never seen the face of. And as a hormonal teenager, this was huge. Listen, as a kid and a young middle school teen, I was always a nervous and quiet boy, but like Spider-Man puts on a mask and gets a false bravado, I would get a keyboard and mic and do the same. Like, I was swimming in internet girlfriends.
That is not something I would do, but anonymity makes it easier for people to be more confident. And that's a thing that happens even these days. A lot of people hiding under a pseudonym have an easier time being more confident and being a more bombastic version of themselves, or a more vile version of themselves. Like, obviously, if everyone had to use their real names, you know, and everything, they wouldn't be as openly vile. Some would, because some don't really care, but however, I don't think we should go to using real names. I feel like that is a horrible, horrible move. I think that anonymity is just a double-edged sword where you can have more privacy and you can speak up about the things you care about more and be a version of yourself that you cannot be. You can, you know, for better or for worse. But that also is for the worse too. And some people have taken advantage of that big time in recent years.
Farther along by then, and people were more open to showing their face to confirm with video chats. But, you know, it was a lot to take in, and honestly, it probably wasn't very healthy at all. But of course, there's a less funny and glamorous and more dangerous side to all this that we'll get to later. But before that, let's take a closer look at the stuff that we get into back then, starting with the adult content that was so easy to get a hold of. Like I said, it didn't take a rocket scientist to find the more lewd side of the internet, and it still doesn't. The stories I could tell about my early exposure are sad as hell, but I'm okay now after a little therapy, so we can all laugh at them now. I remember as a young lad, I was a huge Naruto and Dragon Ball fan, so imagine my surprise when I'm searching them on Google and come across a different type of fan art that changes my perspective on the women of both of these series. I was hooked then and there, and the content available on Newgrounds that was hidden as dress-up games.
Yeah, there are a lot of dress-up games that are more than that.
F games and the Zone Animation series, so and if you know,
yeah, there were a lot of dress-up games that were not quite dress-up games.
Get totally lost in for a kid. Type 18 plus into Google back then, just click and you're in.
I remember, like, I think that is a problem with, like, where he does have a good point about moderation. I feel like, I guess it's just like the tone that he was talking about just makes it very. But yeah, I remember there was this one Flash site I was checking out every fucking day, right? Because there were like new Flash games coming out, and there was a Naruto dating sim, right? And me as a kid, I was like, oh, I like Naruto, and I played the game. You played as I think as Hinata or Sakura. No, as Sakura, and your goal was to get in a relationship with Sasuke, or Naruto, or Rock Lee. You had more options actually, but you know. And you would like have hangouts. You could choose where to go and hang out with them, go on dates, and you'd get asked questions from them, and if you answered right, you gain like a point in their relationship counter. It was actually like a pretty well done game, like at least from the perspective of someone who played it like last time played it probably like what, when I was 11, 12. I don't even know how old I was. I was just like very young. But I'm still going to talk about this, right? And I remember I was like really gaining a lot of points to win the game, and I actually was going to win the game, right? I was like going to ask one of them. I don't remember who. I think was it maybe Sasuke, maybe Naruto. I don't remember. And then the last day, there's Shikamaru comes and asks you a question, and no matter what you clicked, it would turn into an NSFW scene where, let's say, Sakura would do things. And I remember as a kid, that was shocking to me because I was like, what the fuck is going on? I just want the good ending. Why are people doing this? And even to this day, I'm like, why what was the necessity of that? Why put in the effort to make this game and put all those choices and make this game very complex and actually make you get involved and get interested, only for it to just turn into like a porn scene, and for it to turn out that literally nothing you've done has any influence, because no matter if you won or lost, the same ending would happen. It was literally a bait and switch where you would get involved, you get interested, you'd want to actually win at the game, because that's how it is in a game. You want to get to the good route, but all routes were just leading to that. And I guess that's like a equivalent of what she's trying to talk about, how a lot of NSFW stuff was snuck in without knowledge, and that's still a problem, but it's just very different compared to how it was then, because there's not many Flash games around and people don't really play them. But I'm sure that's still a huge problem on Roblox or whatever, like Roblox is a huge platform now. So there's that.
A new world that your young mind is not ready for, and your older mind will regret years later down the line. There is so much that I saw at too young an age to comprehend what I was getting into. These sights and experiences preyed on young minds to find them and add to their constant revenue streams. Hence the lower than dirt entry barriers, and judging by the profits now, I said that everyone did a good job.
Probably, I think that's correct.
The adult side of TikTok and social media followed even today. Aside from that, the shock exposure sites were at their peak. For the first time, insane grotesque content was available to general audiences at the click of a button. And the worst part is that this shocking content became part of viral trends to expose as many unassuming fools to it as possible.
That is correct.
Rest in peace to those caught by Lemon Party, Meat Spins, and Two Girls, One Cup. If you don't know, I talk about those in my trauma.
Screamers, at least he called them that.
Content was a meme comparable to how we send stuff like this monkey in a coat in IKEA to each other now, with no context.
Yeah.
If you were on any social media from MySpace to Facebook, or even just had an email or AIM messenger, you were at risk of coming into contact with something that you'd rather not have your innocence destroyed by. There were also sites where people were becoming gorehounds, places where fiends just wanted to see a corpse or someone's demise out of morbid curiosity or sick amusement would go, like Rotten or Lively. Games weren't safe either. While sites for children's Flash games seemed normal at first glance, you would eventually stumble on some wild game simulating like a real shooter.
I think there was an actual game like that. There are multiple games like that. I remember I actually replayed this game where you have to copy you have to copy homework off you have to copy off of someone on a test, right? And the teacher just walks around, and you can see where he's looking at, right, through one of those like vision, whatever you call them. And that game just like starts off very normal, then then a guy just kills himself, and that's like, okay, whatever, over the top and whatever. And it ends with a fucking school shooting. And there's a sequel, and it actually has like some plot relevance and explains how it is surviving it and all of that. I don't remember much about the sequels. I just remember there was a lot of relevance to like the ending of the first game. Anyway.
Even the Neopets chat rooms where groomers and bullies lurked for kids to harass. Sounds real familiar, huh?
Yeah, I think some things have not changed.
Advertised towards children, many Flash games baited us into some shocking experiences like the Ugly, the PETA games, the torture games, and Covetous.
Yeah.
You start off by playing like Wrath Wars or Final Fantasy Sonic, and suddenly you're in the
Final Fantasy Sonic was great.
Curious that you're choosing to stay.
Or Sonic RPG or whatever it was called. Also, there was another one that I played that had the knights.
Yeah, before the dawn of Adblock, we were getting attacked by all
angles. Yeah.
Congratulations, you won.
I'm glad that pop-ups have kind of died out, but we have worse things going on now.
Suddenly you're fighting for your life to not get your parents' computer hijacked and yourself grounded.
Or not really worse, equally bad, or close to.
Any other music or media pirate sites, you probably know a thing or two about getting a computer hijacked. I have a whole video out about this era and all the viruses in disguise and struggles that you had to minefield your way through just so you can download 50 cents in the cloud. So I'll give you a minute to watch that and come back. Don't worry, we'll wait. Okay, you done? Through all this, you learned real quick that the internet doesn't care how old you are. You click the wrong thing and your whole desktop is about to scream at you in Russian or something. But what might have been the
I'll have to say and make this point. Based on the beginning, I was thinking that this video is going to be this bullshit video where it's like, oh, the 2000 was so great. It was just you would survive because everyone was just saying slurs and it was okay, and you should do it too, and but no, the video was actually quite informative and pretty decent. I was actually thinking that I was going to lambast it and just criticize it, and I do have a lot of criticism that I have raised, but it's not as bad as I thought. It's just I do have criticism.
The scariest part about the internet in the 2000s was all the myths and madness that suddenly would spread across the web. Literally everything that you read would have some kind of psychological grip on you. For example,
or there's also a huge thing was these like chain mail spam whatevers of XYZ service is shutting down. However, if you send this message to 30 people in your friend list or 10 or whatever, your account will be safe. But it's like, okay, how will that even matter if it gets shut down? As I remember, I almost fell for it once, but I think after the age of 8, I kind of realized, but if it gets shut down, what would I even do with it? It's not like I can just keep using it if the whole service gets shut down. But I realized that some people are not that wise. I sometimes like go on like Facebook or whatever, check Facebook Marketplace or keep in touch with people. And I remember first post I saw on my timeline was someone literally word for word doing that copy pasta as a post, and it wasn't even from an old person. It was from someone my age, like late 20s, early 30s, mid 20s, whatever, around that age range, like 25 to 30 something. And they were like just pretty much doing that copy pasta, but about Meta's AI training bullshit. And it's like, no, I don't think that through a post you'll get that shit removed. The best way to remove that is by shutting down your Facebook, which I plan on doing. Anyway.
I know a lot of you know the old myth about kidnappers that will hide under a lone woman's car while she's pumping gas so they could cut her ankle and abduct her. Well, that actually began before the internet, but was even further spread due to being present on early internet forums and continuing to be spread as a precaution across social media even today. The net was and still is a crazy breeding ground for urban legends that still live in our subconscious. Many of them forced upon us without a choice. This was the plan of attack for chain emails, messages that encourage the recipient to send or forward them to another person for good luck.
Yeah, or like the
threat,
oh, if you don't post this to 10 other people, you will die in 7 days.
Like some send this if you love Jesus.
This.
Other times it will be the scariest thing a kid would ever read. A few examples of the more harmful chain mails were screamers disguised as innocent games and messages. Those ones about you being killed if you didn't forward it to X amount of people. Hoaxes warning you about something that never actually happened. And ones containing links that could lead to you getting hacked.
Yeah.
Bro, we were just getting hacked.
However, those are still a thing, like links, or you can get hacked. In fact, I think it's kind of worse than ever now because you can get... there's a good reason why blocking images is a good idea on email if you want to take precautions, because there can quite literally those images being executed, you can quite literally give them what they need. If they have a 1x1 pixel image trying to like butt fuck you pretty much into giving your data out, because the problem is it really does get as bad as that. You really have a matter of just a matter of just a 1x1 pixel image that is meant to redirect to like a payload page or something like that, and you can get your data stolen or something. Will this happen to you? Not likely unless you're a target, but it's not there's no zero chances. That's why if you see anything suspicious, it's good to not open it at all and to take those precautions. Again, blocking images from loading is not a bad idea. Anyway,
for anything, honestly. They didn't want us to live. And of course, there were creepypastas like the breakout star of the internet genre, Slenderman, which many kids quickly believed for some reason. What probably felt the most alien...
I don't recall hearing anything about the Slenderman before the late 2000s. But then again, I may be wrong.
The early net days were the forums and social media that made their presence known. These places are where early internet cultures were born and eventually led to where we are now.
Yeah.
Many image boards and forums built themselves around being lawless, making them homes to super edgelords and a lot of shot content, from straight up racism to the typical gore and crime.
Yeah. Again, 4chan or worse that I will not name.
Honestly, that sounds a lot like modern day Twitter. I mean, X.
Yeah, Twitter.
Wow,
yeah, Twitter is it's really bad now.
Back then, it was more of an underground thing.
Yeah.
And yes, I do.
Yeah, no, he is right. Like, basement dwellers being like extremely edgy was mostly just like the absolute like bumhole nowhere edges of 4chan, let alone the internet. And nowadays, you just have to go on Twitter and you encounter them just all the time.
Do know that there were a lot of normal and just straight up nerdy image boards and forums. Shout out to Shoryuken. Also, on the more innocent side of these net cultures, there were sites like MySpace, where all that mattered was finding the glitter code for your profile,
yeah,
or the drama that your top 8 chart caused. However, what felt like the darkest side of this new world was the new chat rooms made available to everyone, like AIM Messenger. This AOL developed message service allowed complete strangers to chat instantly through text that would eventually blow up in popularity and become completely free for anyone to use.
Yeah, and they've
It
become
allowed for
eventually
group
like
chats, friends lists, and file sharing between
MSN,
chatters,
Yahoo,
playing a huge role in what
Skype,
social media and
Discord.
online messaging is now. That includes all the bad that's part of the spirit as well. There was catfishing before it was even called that, with adults constantly on there grooming kids and teens through fake profiles, famously seen many, many times on To Catch a Predator. Cyberbullying and public humiliation with people mass spreading rumors, the normalizing of underage
unfortunately.
sexting. And let's not forget all...
Like, a lot of people are trying to say that, oh, things were so much better back then, but... And I sometimes fall into the same pitfalls, but when it comes to the internet, that is, like... It depends. Like, some aspects were better, but, like, let's be honest, it wasn't better for, like... how they would approach things. Like, again, the whole situation with Davi Vanity and what was his name? This kid who pretty much had to make a video debunking that they were involved with Davi Vanity, even though they were actually a victim, as it turns out. And people, instead of, harassing the grown-ass adult who preyed on the child, who was like, what, 11, 13, whatever, was preying on, just like, they were harassing the child to the point of like their family having to come by and pretty much say, hey, just like ended up with the meme with like, you done goofed, or I'll call the cyber police. And like, yeah, sure, that's a meme, but unfortunately it does come from a place where someone got harassed for literally being a victim. Like, these days people are complaining that like anyone can be a victim and we don't wait for both sides, which is a fair criticism. But back then people would just like straight up not even care about the victim. People would just like harass the victim over literally being victimized and it would get very vile. And I don't remember where that kid is now, but I know from last time I recall they came out as like non-binary, transmasc. Not sure. Either way, that is like irrelevant to the situation. The point is, we are doing so much better, and I know that like a lot of people have like said, hey, this kid deserved better, and that's the truth. And I do believe that at least the internet is better in that regard. However, unfortunately, the huge problem with the internet these days is that some people will still be cool in like engaging with a person who was caught being a horrible person just because they're like, oh, well, what's my problem? It's like, okay, it's not your fault that the person you enjoyed was a horrible person, but you can try to disengage, at least, at the very least, by not openly stating that you're supporting them, at the very, very, very least. But yeah, and all of that situation Davi Vanity started from this website that was about gossiping, and a lot of it was pretty much about slut shaming. People were teenagers or even younger, and oftentimes it was because adults were preying on them. It was vile. It was absolutely disgusting, and I'm glad that we know better in that regard. Even if it's not perfect, even if things are still difficult, we at least like have a better understanding of what's going on.
The vulnerabilities with people constantly getting caught by phishing links, IP grabbers, and other exploits that could F up your whole internet experience. Heck, some of y'all probably went around for the old YouTube days where not everyone was on the site just to watch content, upload videos, or comment. Back in the day, YouTube was a social media of its own, where people would customize their backgrounds of their channels.
It still is a social media of its own to some degree, just not as...
Role play, chat, sext, and all that. It's insane how made up that sounds, but it's legit. I was there.
Messages weren't there for a while.
As you can probably tell by now, this was all fun and games until it wasn't anymore. Being a kid on the net in the 2000s was actually scary as AF. And yes, I said that. It's a habit. You would be in a chat room and mess with the wrong person, and suddenly this MF is sending you your address. And
I never had the experience of that, but then again, that's me. The thing is that, yeah, it was definitely online security was just an afterthought back then. Like, I'm even thinking about computing, right? It took Windows until Service Pack 2 to have any sort of XP, until Service Pack 2 to have any proper security. And I think that's quite telling. And the reason why Service Pack 2 came out in the first place was because there was a huge problem with the virus that was so widespread that a lot of XP users would already have it installed on their PCs by the time Windows was done installing. It was that bad. Or at least shortly after. The point is, it was very bad. And that's why a lot of people are being like, yeah, you shouldn't use all operating systems, and to which I would say yes, unless you're a huge nerd like me. However, if you're using it complete offline, or you're using an up-to-date patched version of Windows XP, you will be fine. At least in that regard. Anyway, let's continue.
IP just to scare you. Like, there was always this fear of being spread by real happenings, the news, and urban myths that you were always being tracked or watched, leading to things like people
which turns out not to be a myth. Like, I remember in the 2000s when people would say, yeah, the government is keeping track of everything you're saying online, everything you're doing. Everyone was like, you're kind of a nutcase, huh? And then Snowden came forward and said, no, that is actually correct. And everyone was like, ugh. And now we're more aware. But people have to remember that there was a time where saying that would paint you as the most unhinged conspiracy theories. And I seriously feel like some of the things I say paint me as an unhinged conspiracy theorist. However, I feel like as time goes by, I get increasingly more and more vindicated. Even today, a lot of the things I was warning people about and telling people, hey, this is going to happen, and this is how things are, and this is a concern, people would kind of ignore it. And now it's happening, and it's like an oh shit moment when it's like, yeah, I said this is gonna happen. I talked about this like months and months ago, and maybe even years. But anyway,
that joke about having a personal FBI agent wasn't a joke to everyone back then. That joke felt real, and it legit freaked a lot of us out. Then you had the kids that would brick a whole family computer for doing the wrong thing, and once your parents checked the history, you may as well consider yourself a boomer because you're off of the net for a bit. So yeah, being a kid on the 2000s internet was like getting dropped into a digital war zone with no plates, map, or any idea of what's out there. We were legit throwing crap at the wall.
I also feel like he's overstating the dangers. Like, yeah, it was not safe. However, it was also not as oh yeah, if you went there, it's like a battlefield. You will get your IP leaked, and you would like. That is like a lot of those things are still applicable in the modern web. It's, you know, again, some things were never good, some things were better, and some things were worse. And I think that's the takeaway.
And seeing what clicked. Get it? Clicked? Yeah, seriously, it was messy, reckless, and dangerous for a lot of us to be doing what we were doing. And a lot of us came out with weird traumas, memories, and even kinks that you can't make up. The early internet didn't even try to pretend to protect us. In fact, it did the opposite and exposed us to a lot more than we were ready for. And that chaos kind of shaped us into the people that we are today, for better.
The thing is, even now, it feels like it's more of a facade. Like, yes, sure, there are some security measures in place, but you can't really say that 100% genuinely when YouTube restricts people for saying certain words or whatever, and people have to walk on eggshells. Meanwhile, they're straight up allowing porn as to run as ads or scams. And same goes with Twitter. It pretty much makes me think that, oh, these websites are knowingly taking advantage of porn and scams because they get paid. And they're like, well, we're getting paid to run those scams, so what's our problem? Because they only remove them, oftentimes, like, if you want them to get removed, if you manually report them, nothing happens. You have to at YouTube support and at YouTube and hope that your post gets enough traction for enough people to put pressure on them. And that happens every time. Every fucking time.
Thankfully, this means that a generation was birthed that's actually prepared to monitor what the next is opposed to on the net. Because I know if I ever have kids, they're getting one of those stupid phones with no internet or something until they're ready. It's really funny to look back at all this, and amidst all the cries of internet censorship and whatnot, see how...
Definitely, like, if kids these days shouldn't even be on the internet, like, until they're like, honestly, like, I'm not in support of like a ban under a certain age, because I feel like legally that would make it, that would again feed into my worry about surveillance. But at the same time, I also do believe that it's very unsafe for anyone under 16 at this point. And even then, you know, there's caveats and caveats.
How much things haven't really changed. Instead of forums, we have general social media where subgroups still branch off into their own communities.
Yeah.
Instead of messengers, we
though
have
forums
Discords
had
and
some advantages.
Facebook messages and all that.
I feel like the difference is that one advantage about forums is they were well more comprised. They were about a specific topic where you could talk about that topic with people who you knew cared about that topic, and you could meet new people. You could form real relationships with people, friendships or more.